A Skinwalker Ranch biologist said that the ranch gives you what you want. And it's very disturbing because it reminds me too much of the demonic spiritual world. So let's get into it, guys. Shout out to Area 52.
I have to say it. The ranch operates as if it is self-aware, as if it has a consciousness. Maybe it does. Even if it doesn't, it operates that way. Kind of like genetics. Genes operate as though we say, oh, this is the genetic motivation. Well, genes, as far as we know, don't have a motivation, but they operate in the way that they do. So we phrase it. The ranch, whether it's actually self-aware or not, it operates as though it
appears
does.
to be.
And what I see is that during the Bigelow era, it was kind of given a little friction, and then it kind of died down. And then during this new era, it gave friction at first, and we gave friction back, and some rough things happened in the beginning. And then it was kind of like, okay, all right, fine, I'm going to teach you. It's like the phenomenon is like, I'm going to teach you. I'm going to mess with your digital devices, but learn from that and then do a better experiment. It's almost like it's a trickster spirit, like a trickster energy, but it's trying to teach you.
Isn't there so many demons known to be like the trickster demon, the trickster god? What? Like this is what I'm saying. This is all too similar to the demonic.
Move the ball forward. It's almost like you idiots are going to keep coming back.
Yeah.
All right, okay, I'm going to teach you some things.
So to any skeptical person out there, this sounds like a lot of woo-woo stuff. Like this initially, when you hear this stuff coming from someone like yourself, and you have a clear history in studying biology and paleontology and all this stuff, to hear someone like you of your caliber say, oh, but there's like a trickster energy, that does sound a little woo to people out there. What's an example that you can give that's like a concrete, like, oh, here's just one of many that'll help you understand what I'm trying to say?
As far as the ranch seems to give you what you want. If you come in there with a lot of bravado, people get attacked. People collapse. People fall over. People get their heart attacked. People get their mind attacked.
What?
But if you come in and just kind of have an attitude of like, I'd like to learn, then it seems the phenomenon will show you what your field of science wants. Now, I understand.
That's crazy. It gives you what you want, like your fleshly desires. Sometimes that's how the enemy works too. It gives you all your evil desires, your fleshly desires. And maybe he's not talking about that exactly, but it's something to think about.
You could say the opposite. You could say, well, that's your field of science. So, of course, you're going to notice those kind of things. I'm aware of that, but even factoring that in, it seems to show you that.
So it's like amplifying what's already in your mind kind of thing?
Like it's aware, and it will show you. It will bring you. Like for me, dead stuff. Anytime I'm going to come on the ranch, dead animals are going to give you so much information. And, we even had one time where the producer of the show and I walked out when I just showed up, and boom, there was 2 dead quail sitting right in front of us. And we're both we start laughing. We're like, okay, Ben showed up. Here's dead quail. Both of them, the beaks open up like this, right? Both of them had the upper mandible bashed in, but the lower mandible was still in place, which if they ran into something, those would both be broken. They were dead. They sat on the ground all week, summer heat. They were 2 feet away. I've got footage of this, 2 feet away from a fire ant hill. The fire ants wouldn't touch it.
Whoa.
And they stayed floppy for that whole week. So we ended up freezing them. And so it's like, well, Ben's here. Here's dead animals. That's what you always want.
That just seems like the demonic. It really does. Yeah. 1 Peter 5:8 says, your adversary, the devil, prowls around like a roaring lion seeking someone to devour. The trickster, the deceiver, the one who shows you exactly what you want to see, so you follow in deeper in. That's crazy. The Bible describes this thousands of years before the Skinwalker Ranch has revealed it.
During this video. All right, let's talk about dead animals since we're going here, because this is pretty fascinating. Obviously, there are thousands upon thousands. I would probably even estimate tens of thousands of cases of like cattle mutilation across North America.
What?
It's a problem for a lot of farmers in Canada as well. And especially, in these sort of local or these sort of isolated areas. There seems to be a lot of this happening. Not strictly cattle. It sometimes can, go into horses or like other, mammals. But Skinwalker Ranch is known primarily for the cattle mutilations.
Yeah.
When we're talking about cattle mutilations to anyone that's out there, there's obviously some anomalous things that happen or that happened to the animal that cause, sort of concern, which is the unexplained boring of, its genitals or the lack of blood or the lack of struggle even. But then, like you said, just the sort of lack of rigor mortis or the way that they decompose and the way that animals are sort of uninterested in a carcass, which is obviously very interesting to animals normally.
Yeah.
What out of all of those symptoms, what have you observed there? Have you seen all of these things firsthand?
Yes. My first time, so I'll talk about the small stuff and then the cattle mutilation part. Yeah. So my first day coming on the ranch, we pull up and at the gate, I look over and there's a dead rabbit sitting there. And I thought, okay. And in those days, I was nervous to take photos and document because I was very cautious about things. And now I film everything. So I snapped a few pictures and every day coming back, it was still there and we checked it, floppy, no ants, no gastrointestinal swelling, no bloating, no scavengers bothered it, no ants, no flies, nothing. It didn't smell. And I was there, I don't know, like 3, 4, 5 days that week.
Why wouldn't the animal smell if it's dead? And this mutilation thing is wild. Cutting off its genitals, all of that. This is seemingly something so disturbing that I have no idea what they're going to say.
And then the last day I went, it was gone and it was all sand and irrit, no tracks, nothing had scavenged. It was just gone. That same first week, we found a skunk and it looked like a taxidermy skunk. It looked like it was happy. It was just like, this dead skunk. We documented it there for 3 years. It was untouched. It didn't rot. It didn't disintegrate. It smelled a little bit like a skunk, but no rot stink. And then finally,
for 3 years?
3 years.
Stop.
And so finally, Eric Bard and I.
That's
impossible. That's impossible. You have decomposers. When you die, you have internal bacteria that starts to, you're like, oh, I'm not getting a food source anymore. So it starts to eat your stomach lining, off-gassing, and that's where you get the bloating. But you also have external decomposers that start to break you down. None of that happened.
What is this spiritual idea of it not decomposing, though? What is happening? Are they embalming it?
So Eric Bard and I said, well, it's been 3 years. Let's film a little blurb on it. So him and I, just on his phone, we filmed a thing of it and turned it over and examined it. The next day we came out, it was gone.
No.
And in its place was a perfectly decomposed like arm of probably like a prairie dog, like a large rodent, not a skunk. And a chunk of that skunk fur was wedged up on the side of the old ruins of the Homestead 2 there. Almost like it's like, oh, you think I can't decompose? Blam, here's a decomposed hand. And here's a little, and nobody else, you can't get on the ranch. You can't just drive on. We were the only ones there. It was just Eric and I. So did Eric in the middle of the night go and get.
I'm telling you, this is seemingly so demonic. What in the world?
The skunk and put a prairie dog leg there and wedge this thing up there. So what we found is that small animals don't decompose. Rigor mortis doesn't set in. They never bloat. If they're in the water, they will. But if they're on land, they don't. They just stay floppy. And
this is all animals without exception, all small animals without exception?
Birds and mammals and one frog.
One frog.
We've had weird things with a fish too, which that's a separate issue too. But yeah, so small animals, if you're like coyote sized or smaller, if you die on the ranch, you don't decompose. We've had some things like we had a bird called an oriole, and they brought me this oriole, and it was the legs. You got skin and scales on the legs, right? And when we did a necropsy, open it up, there was just gaps. And I'll send you a picture, a drawing I did. And it was just like bone empty, bone empty, bone empty down the whole leg. It was just chunks missing. that bird would not be alive if that was the case. And there were just these gaps
of marrow.
Just like no tendon, muscle, or bone, and then tendon, muscle, and bone. No tendon, muscle.
Everything was gone.
But the leg
except for
intact.
the skin.
Yeah, the skin and the scales on the outside were there, and so we opened it up.
Is something taking it? Something taking this thing from the bird?
It's like, that's impossible, and no decomposer would do that. No dermestid beetles wouldn't do that, because tendon and bone, it doesn't make sense. So that one messed me up. So another one we found on the ranch, a starling, and I think this was on the TV show. And this starling was squishy and stayed that way for like
What's
months.
A starling? It's a bird?
It's a little bird. It's in the Mina family. They're from Europe. People brought them over.
Okay.
And they're about the size like a robin, bigger than a sparrow, but it was squishy to the touch, stayed that way forever. So I took it off the ranch. Once it was off the ranch, it started to decompose, and the skull looked like it had blown up from the inside. And Eric pointed that out. He's like, there looks like some sort of energetic thing that popped out. Well, in the skull, it started to smell at home, never did on the ranch. So is it because it's on the ranch that it doesn't decompose? Well, all these weird bubbles started to form. It looked like a metallic bubble, and it was almost like a bubble would start. And I got tweezers, and I'm like, I'm going to grab this. Pop. It pops, no residue. And I'm like, that's strange. Another one forms. And they kept forming. And finally, I'm like, every time this is popping, nobody's going to believe me. So I snapped a few photos, and I'll show you some photos of that too. But it's like, I don't know what that stuff was, but it didn't happen until this dead bird was taken off the ranch. But before that, even when it was fresh off the ranch, squishy and floppy.
So was that, I'm confused. That looked pretty decomposed there. I couldn't even tell what that was.
It's insane.
That's definitely insane.
I'm telling you, this sounds so crazy. The Bible says we do not battle against flesh and blood, but against the principalities and the rulers in the heavenly places. There's another dimension that exists alongside our physical world and operates by different rules. Whatever is operating at Skinwalker Ranch seems like it has access to both dimensions. It can manipulate the physical matter. A dead animal, a falcon, a drone. This is all crazy. So now apparently a falcon disappears into a portal. This has to be good. What does he think is going on though?
We start flying the falcon. It's flying up. It's doing good. We're like, okay, this is interesting. Let's call it back down. It comes back down. And we have a lure. It's like a fake bird. You swing around, you put it on the ground, the bird lands, and you go pick him up. So my buddy does that, and right as it gets by the ground, it freaks out. It's like, and it kind of like panics every time and goes back up a bit and goes to come back down. Something on the ground was repelling it. It was something repulsed it from going down. So it freaked out. It started going up, and it got to about 800 feet, and the GPS blips start missing. It's like beep, 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 and keeps going up. We're filming. The TV crew is filming, and all of a sudden the bird disappears. We're like, what? My buddy's like, my falcon, where'd it go? And then on the GPS, it reappears over the triangle, which is about a mile away. And so we go running over there.
How long of a time between?
Immediately.
Whoa. So this falcon goes through a portal. The Bible does say that animals can see the spiritual realm even a little bit more different because spiritual things can reveal himself. We see that happen in the Old Testament with this donkey who saw an angel in front of the road and he wouldn't go any further. That is so creepy.
Impossible. And now when it disappeared, no GPS, no radio signal. The second it reappears, the radio transmitter is working 100% correctly. We can see the bird, radio transmitter is working. The GPS is now mirroring the bird's motions, but it's
in the wrong place.
It's in the wrong place. And when we got the bird back and pulled up the data, it says the bird went through the mesa.
Whoa.
Which is impossible.
What's a
and
mesa?
It's important to note, if you follow this stuff, if you watch the TV show, where the bird went in the mesa, we have at night a white orb that goes into the mesa at that same spot. And there's another season where Brandon's flying in the helicopter at sunset, still daylight, and a white orb comes out of the mesa below him. That is the same place where the falcon went in and where the falcon reappeared.
No.
So you got to piece those things together. Maybe they're related.
Are there portals? All right, let's see if we can find this video.
Hey, Preston. What's up, guys?
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to play this or not because it's through a History Channel.
Thomas and I prepared to launch rockets up through them. We wanted to see if the rockets would make contact with anything strange and reveal just what we might be dealing with.
I'm gonna go in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
We had a beautiful launch over here in the triangle.
That's your launch. Why did that not launch? Son of a...
We were assuming that more phenomena would happen with the swarm in the bubble than the one in the east field. So,
Yeah, all those videos that we've seen are very old from, the UFO files. So I can't find this video apparently. Maybe it's
Falcon,
new.
100% fine. It was kind of like, a little alarmed, but it was fine, healthy. The bird's alive and happy today, still being flown.
That's incredible.
But that's impossible. They didn't put it on the show just because sometimes you'll put it later on in the season or you'll put it in the next season and like, oh, it was this season. But there were some people in those shots that aren't on the show anymore. And so like, oh, well, now we can't do this. And I'm like, this is really important.
Well, yeah, it should still be released. You don't have access to that footage?
I have access to the GPS.
To the GPS,
I have the GPS data, which I have. I bet I can get permission to share that, but I haven't been given permission. I got Brandon gave me permission to share this story because I'm like, this needs to be out there. If it
Stop. So he doesn't have proof apparently, or he can't show the video because someone left the show. Seriously? That's ridiculous. All right. Now we're going to go to a part where they say they have a dire wolf. How would they know it's a dire wolf DNA?
came back, and basically, 90%, 89%, basically 90% of it is a non-existent wolf species. So the remaining 10% is a Eurasian gray wolf and Greenland gray wolf. Those do not live in Utah. Those are not in the United States. Though that alone should be a story, right? What's a Greenland? They're separated.
Yeah, that alone is anomalous.
So why are they there? But Colossal said, and I think they're trying to save their professionalism. They said, well, from this we can, confidently declare this as being a gray wolf. And I'm like, 10% of it is a gray wolf. What about the other 90%? 90% is the bulk of it. If your dog was 10% Chihuahua and the rest of it was wolf, you would say this is a wolf, right? You wouldn't say this is a Chihuahua. It's like 90% of this is a new wolf. And they put it on their list and they just put it down as mystery. They didn't want to declare it. They didn't want to call it a dire wolf. They didn't want to call it anything else. And they have like every cane. They even have Papuan singing dogs genetically sequenced.
And then fast forward a few years later, they're making a dire wolf.
Then they're making a dire wolf. Yeah.
Seems a little suspicious.
Yeah. True. That is crazy. I heard about that. Man, the Bible talks about hybrids, Nephilim, so many things happening in this spiritual world. All right. So what's his conclusion?
Been on the ranch 100%, 500%. I mean, and the thing that pisses me off scientifically is it makes zero sense. If you said, oh, here's a place where people see Bigfoot a lot. I don't know if Bigfoot's real or not. I've seen Bigfoot and I don't know if Bigfoot's real. Okay. But if you just said that, or here's a place where we saw a UFO, cool. But what does that have to do with prehistoric animals coming through portals? What does that have to do with cattle mutilations? What does it have to do with decomposition not happening? These things should not overlap. They're weird enough as they are. They shouldn't overlap, and they do, and I can verify that for myself. So if nobody believes me, that's fine. I know for myself because I've experienced it 100%. And I've seen some of the greatest scientists I've ever had a chance to work with also see this firsthand and see it like make them scratch their heads and some of them get attacked,
Wow.
What's the most important discovery during your time there? Absolutely real that something is interacting with you.
So going into it, I think I was maybe 30%, maybe 40%. I thought people think it's up here, and I think they've inflamed it up. I think it's probably, there's some weirdness going on. It's probably around here. and people like a good story.
Yeah, that's a healthy way to think.
Yeah. And but now having been on the ranch 100%, 500%,
Wow,
I mean,
that's crazy. So he believes that there's something extraordinary going on there. 500%. And I believe him. But here's what they won't tell you, and what I believe the Bible has already talked about. The trickster energy, the animals that won't die, the portals, the DNA that matches nothing, the invisible wall that stops lasers. These aren't random anomalies. They are patterns. The pattern that has a name. The principalities, powers, rulers, spiritual forces of evil in the heavenly places. Acts 19:15 says, "The evil spirit said, 'Jesus I know and Paul I know, but who are you?'" The beings operating at Skinwalker Ranch know the name of Jesus. They have always fled from it. If you want to know who has the power over every authority, every portal, every orb, over every dimension, that is Jesus. And I encourage you to know him. You're created to have a relationship with him. In the description below, you can actually click a link to help you to decide to follow Jesus for the first time. It will be the best decision you could ever make. Well, anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. Love and appreciate you all. Have an amazing day, and God bless.